Baby, can't you hear my call? I can't stand.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dave Sims. Welcome to another edition of the Hey Now podcast. Jared Sims joins me, my son, and our guest today, one of the great baseball writers in the country, a guy we've known for a lot of years. From USA Today, their lead baseball columnist, Bob Nightengale. Bobby, thanks for coming on, man. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks, David. Thanks, Jared.
So, the last couple of weeks, the first couple of weeks of spring training, how's it gone for you so far? Have you had enough news?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of news in Florida. I've been at Dodger camp by about 80% of the time. I've never seen anything like it. I thought it was a lot last year, but you can go the Yankee media group, the Red Sox reporters, and multiply by 10, and you get the Dodger clubhouse. There's a good 110 reporters in there every single day. It is wild there.
Wow. And a large percentage from Japan, I assume, right?
Yeah, I bet probably 85-90% is a Japanese media, and yeah, they're going crazy. It's almost like Yamamoto, even though he made $325 million or got $325 million contract, he's old news. Now it's all about Sasaki and Ohtani.
Saw a notification come through on my phone. What does Sasaki look like?
Looks great. I mean, that's why everybody in the world wanted the guy. Throws 102 miles an hour. Great split finger. People say never seen a split finger quite like it. And, hopefully he'll pick up a slider one day too. But he's not going to win a Cy Young or anything this year. But they think they see multiple Cy Young award winners in him, well before he retires.
So what is the biggest story you're tracking spring training this year, 2025 season?
It's the Dodgers. It's everybody wants to beat them. It's kind of like the Yankees, back in the day. Everybody griping about the money they spent and having the biggest stars. Same thing. If they lose 3 games in a row, people are going crazy. What's wrong with the Dodgers? But they got so many starters. They got 8 or 9. So kind of is anybody they're going to pitch 150 innings? Maybe not, because they don't need to. They're just going to rest people all year long for the playoffs and World Series.
The Dodgers make a big splash. I know the old Larry Lucchino line about the Yankees being the evil empire. Now people are calling them the evil empire. They are clearly the big winner in the offseason. Who would you have in that number 2 slot?
Yeah, clear number 1 winner. I thought obviously with the Mets getting Soto, I thought the Yankees did a wonderful job. I think the Yankees were better off not getting Soto and spreading that money around, allocating different areas where they're a lot deeper team now, fixing different holes. Where if they'd signed Soto, they wouldn't be able to do that. The Cubs made some nice improvements. Obviously, Arizona Diamondbacks, who were knocking the door last year, World Series 2 years ago, get Corbin Burns. Love the moves they made. So, but yeah, not a lot of teams. Cincinnati, I think getting Terry Francona is a big step. But not a lot of teams did, massive moves. I'll throw the Red Sox in there, of course, to help themselves. But certainly put the Red Sox in top 3 or 4 for sure.
Has the Red Sox situation, with Bregman said he'll play anywhere. He'll play second. Do you expect any conflict moving forward the rest of spring training? I mean, Devers wants to stay at third. How is Alex Cora handling that?
I mean, Cora was telling people all winter long he can't wait to play second base for the Red Sox. He knew they had a third baseman. So never was he talking to anybody about playing third base. If he went somewhere else, yeah. If he went to Detroit, if they had gone to 7 years, he'd be a Tiger today. But he was always talking about playing second base. And I think he wanted to go to Boston all along. And, these other teams kind of, up the ante when the Cubs jumped in, things like that. But no, he's fine with it. He really is. And hey, Devers has got pride to say, wait a minute now, you just gave me $300 million to be here for 10 years as the third baseman. At some point, you move. We saw Alex Rodriguez move for Derek Jeter. Obviously, Trout moved. Torrey Hunter, moved years ago. So it's probably going to happen, but it's not going to happen right away.
Yeah. As you were packing to get out to Florida and Zona, what other maybe second level storylines were you looking to do some investigation into?
Well, certainly the San Diego Padres. I mean, they had it last year. They had the Dodgers on the ropes. Now all of a sudden they can't spend money. So we'll see if they make some more moves. I don't think they're going to trade Dylan Cease, but they're talking about it. So maybe Suarez, maybe Michael King. So it's a shame. This was their best chance to win the first World Series ever, and they had them on the road. What happened was the Dodgers had Dylan Cease's pitches, and they knocked him around twice, particularly big in the last game. So how they bounced back. Yeah, it's been fun to see just in the Giants camp today. Justin Verlander, can he bounce back? Won a Cy Young Award 2 years ago. He wants those 300 wins. He's 38 shy. Still wants to pitch until he's 45, but looks very good. Looks very hungry.
Not to get off in the deep end of being a Philadelphia Eagles fan, but the Sims family, big Eagles fans, we're still happy, riding high. We were at the parade. So the Dodgers and the way they do contracts, it's like how Howie Roseman pushes out a lot of that money to void years. Explain to me, please, like 7-year-old Maya, my daughter, how contracts now work in the age of sort of how the Dodgers have structured things and changed the game.
Yeah, what they're doing is just deferring contracts. Say, okay, if you want this kind of money, we can do it, but help us out and defer money. If you do that, we can get more guys here. And so obviously, the record case is Ohtani is only making $2 million a year because he makes over $100 million a year off the field. It's like, I don't need money right now. And now I don't get taxed on it. California taxes are the highest in the country. Like 10 years from now, I don't know where I'll be. If not in California, I don't have to get taxed on it. Alex Bregman lives in Texas, so his contract is about half deferred. Same thing. Now once he starts getting those payments and stuff, it's not charged with Massachusetts taxes, but Texas. You remember, Dave, I think the first city that started taxing players in baseball was Philadelphia. And then
Figures.
everybody started doing now. Every city taxes you wherever.
Dad, don't you file taxes in like 17 states?
Yeah, I know it's a lot, man.
Yeah, they don't do it for broadcasters or writers, just for players.
Give me some of that deferred action, pal. Oh man.
So how has that changed the game? How's that dynamic shift impact other teams looking to do the same thing? And also just wondering, does the league office is the league office happy with this, and is this something that you see continuing going forward?
Well, I think some owners aren't happy about it because it lowers what their true luxury tax is. For instance, the Dodgers are paying, on paper, $70 million a year for Ohtani, but really it's only $46 million a year. The Red Sox are only paying Bregman about 32, 33 million a year instead of 40 for luxury tax purposes. And some owners don't like to do deferred payments. I mean, Arnie Moreno of the Angels was offered the same exact deal as the Dodgers for Ohtani. Ohtani would have gone back there, but Artie Moreno doesn't believe in deferred payments. Some owners don't. But I think the owners are trying to say, wait a minute now, should we do something about this? Where the union is talking to Tony Clark about this the other day. He says, no, we like it the way it is. If a team really wants a guy, if a guy wants to go to that team, why not work something out? Whether you're Teoscar Hernandez or Ohtani, Snell. I mean, there's a bunch of those guys that all got deferred contracts this year.
Boy, they lead the league in deferred contracts. So what's that mean? CBA ends after 26. So we looking at some kind of stoppage one way or the other?
It sort of looks like that. You're everybody talking about it, whether it's the owners, the players. I talked to Tony Clark. He says, it's like it's coming up too much. He goes, we're not talking about it, but the commissioner's office is, and owners are talking about it. So I think people are getting upset with the Dodgers, obviously, and the Mets. But as I brought up to Rob Manfred at his briefing the other day, just saying, hey, what's the difference between this and the Yankees? The Yankees didn't break the sport. Why we all of a sudden saying the Dodgers are breaking the sport?
That's a good point. That's a really good point.
Well, I got one for you. So if USA Today said, we're going to add, extra zeros to your contract, are you looking for that deferred money?
Yeah, well, why not? At least you go next generation or something. Yeah, but the most famous one, of course, the Bobby Bonilla one. He still gets paid until he's 72. Just saw Bobby the other night, and but his was with interest. These are with no interest. So it's a help too for the clubs, where it's really not worth that kind of money.
Yeah. Overall, what would you say would be your best health assessment of baseball where we are right now?
I would think very strong. I mean, last year was the biggest attendance, I think, since 2017. This year, they think it'll be 3 straight years of an increase. TV ratings were very high last year. But what Rob Manfred said, and I agree with him at his press briefing, is that we need to make the sport more of a national sport. is too regionalized now. People don't care outside their region, and so they're obviously the Dodger Yankee World Series helped that, but do that because the big money is in the national things, not local. A lot of the local TV contracts now are about 35 million, 40 million a year. And the Dodgers over 300. Yankees, Red Sox have their own network, so it's different. But I think what he loved to do is share all the local TV revenue with everybody, like we have in the other sports.
Well, so many. How many teams have gone have lost their regional sports network connections and are taking it inside and doing streamings? I mean, that number's growing. It seems like by the minute, right?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, but it's got to be over 10 teams right now. It was a
Yeah.
third. Those broadcast things hit hard and they lost a lot of money. That's why Texas didn't spend a year ago. That's why the Padres are in a little trouble financially. So, yeah, you see it more and more. But at least now there's more blackouts. I think if you're living in Iowa before, you're blacked out by about everybody. You couldn't see,
I remember hearing that.
anybody.
Yeah, Iowa. Yeah, if geographically, the Cubs and the Cardinals are close, the Twins are close, and Kansas City's close. And if you can't get anybody, I mean, that makes no sense, and that's a very difficult way to try to sell a game. Jeez, unbelievable. As a baseball insider, I always wanted to ask you guys, what did it take to get to that point where you're at USA Today, where you're the general guy, but quote unquote an insider? You, Kenny Rosenthal, John Heyman, Joe Sherman, a whole bunch of guys, Jeff Passan. Who started that trend?
It was Peter Gammons. Gammons started that trend with his Sunday Notes column in the Boston Globe. He had nobody was doing notes column before Gammons, so it's pretty much Peter Gammons out east, Tracy Ringlesby out west, and they started. Nobody was doing notes. Then it became like a daily notebook in papers, and I think people realized, hey, people rather read the notebook than regular game stories. But Peter was always the best at talking to all the GMs, managers, and stuff like that where when we came up, you're just talking to the only team you're covering.
Right.
So Peter really started that whole thing. He's a godfather of the whole Notes network.
Well, Peter Gammons is a really good dude, really good guy, North Carolina guy. Matter of fact, when he was at North Carolina, Charlie Scott, the first black basketball player at North Carolina, his fraternity rushed him and brought him in and said, "Hey, this is the right thing to do." And Dean Smith backing the whole thing. But anyway, Peter, as Bob talked about, is the major domo of that stuff. And man, Bob, you have your contact list is huge. Mine's pretty decent size, but Peter's must be like, forget about it, right?
Yeah, I mean he did it the right way, the good old fashioned way. Where you're talking to GMs and managers, not too much agents. Now everything's agent driven. About 99% of the stories or news that's broken is through the agent. It's not like a GM is telling, hey, by the way, we're about to sign this guy. It really can't be until they pass a physical. So a lot of it now is all agent driven, and you can pretty much among the insiders, who everybody's source is. You can tell, okay, this guy's going to break this story.
Yeah.
This guy, everybody
So
knows.
I mean, it was like the agents they have all your numbers, and they have guys that they like to go to give the information. Is that how they play it?
Yeah, and some agents too is like, okay, I'll give you where my guy's going to sign. I'll tell the next guy what he's signing for. I'll give the bells and whistles to the other guy. Kind of spread the wealth around.
What are some of the changes that you really like since you started in the business, and others, if you can give a couple that you're not so fond of?
But there's so many agents now. I mean, there's hundreds of agents, and not thousands. Before it was like 3, 4, 5. Who you had the guys. Now even these agencies are so big. You don't know these guys. The winter meetings, just packed full of agents, and never seen them in your life. So that's changed. And social media, I think, has gotten the agents say, hey, let me get this news on social media. Where before it was like, hey, you break a story or someone's signing, you got an entire day yourself. Now you got for 5 seconds by yourself.
Wow. What are the pluses and minuses of that? Because as an old newspaper guy, I never had to go through that.
Yeah, I can't think of any pluses. It's all minuses. Yeah, it used to be more fun that way and do it right now. I mean, everybody can tweet something. I mean, even stories are broken by someone knows somebody, where someone is going, and you don't know what's right, what's wrong. So yeah, with the social media now, everybody can be a reporter.
Yeah.
And where before it's like you said, Dave, it's got to be a newspaper talk show, something like that. So much more different now.
How do you deal with it? And I know I have to deal with it too, but criticism. You got people firing at you from all angles on Twitter and whatnot. Yeah, how have you been dealing with that?
I ignore it, Dave. I don't look at the replies. It doesn't do you any good. You write a story in the paper. I don't want to read it. Like I already know what I wrote. I'm not going to feel better about it in print. It's almost like, you're doing a broadcast. It's not like you want to sit back and listen to it again, like you're just going to
Yeah,
read it yourself. So I don't want to, see people, because social media can be very, negative and bitter and everything else. I remember talking to David Price years ago, and David was big on social media, and he got off it. He goes, I could tweet, God is good, and people will lash back, no, he's a jerk, he's this and that. It doesn't do any good. I don't know why. I don't know why so many athletes on social media. I really don't.
yeah. What kind of complaints do you hear from athletes?
They talk about how negative it is. I mean, it just is. Guys do it for social media presence, but it's such a negative thing to it. It's just everybody wants to attack people. It's so different from what it used to be.
Yeah.
When I first started covering, there wasn't even the internet. It was like,
Right.
hey, it was a newspaper. Nobody had a website. Yeah.
And how? Boy, you've been with USA Today what pretty much your entire run?
Since 1998. Started off doing the Kansas City Royals, then went to the LA Times and did the San Diego Padres, Angels, Dodgers, and then USA Today.
Good for you. Good for you. What's your thoughts on how things have changed in journalism since you started? And I started before you did.
Well, I mean, if you take the train in Philly, New York. Remember, it used to be everybody would have a newspaper in their hands. Everybody would have the airports. We'd have the USA Today at your front, your hotel doorstep every
All the
day.
time.
Late deadlines. Now there's only about 3 or 4 papers in the country where if there's a late game, you can actually read about that game story in the paper. Less than a handful of papers still do that. So it's changed big time. Now everybody's just looking, on their telephones and reading the internet that way.
It's funny. And talking about the newspaper, I can remember in the late 70s when I was at the Daily News, Dick Young, Phil Pepe, Bill Madden, Jack Lang, Steinbrenner was always raising a hubbub. And you'd see guys, they get jittery, or they would talk about how they could never relax because George knew how to play the game. And he would wait sometimes when you were close to the deadline or after your deadline, and he would give it to a particular guy. I was just wondering, any stories along those lines that did you have anything like that happen to you in your early days?
No, I just remember I remember we were in Toronto, and Bo Jackson had decided he was going to start playing football for the Raiders
Yeah.
once the season started. And he tells me this whole story when we're in the airport waiting a flight. Is that right? About the All-Star break. Running to the phone, and you're just kind of dictating your story. And you want to make sure the paper gets it before deadline. And other writers, I remember like Tim Kirchian saying when he was in Dallas, like he get all 3 papers on his front step, and he squints the front page. Okay, I didn't get beat too bad because it wasn't on the front A1. Now let me see if something's on sports section. Sure, squinting almost like you did with your report card as a kid. Like,
Yeah, right.
Is that D or an A?
Never too early to talk Cy Young and MVP watch. Who are you looking at in that regard? Knowing we're just getting started here with spring training.
Yeah, I mean, always, it's always going to be the MVP is always going to be going through Shohei Ohtani. You got to knock him off, and I don't think he'll have the numbers he did a year ago, not pitching as well. I'll be curious Mookie Betts. He's playing shortstop. Let's see how long they do that. But he was right there in the MVP race last year. Until he got hurt. So there's so many stars in that team. You figure it's going to come from one of the Dodger guys. As far as NL Cy Young Award, it'd be interesting to see if Corbin Burns can win one for the Diamondbacks. First guy since Randy Johnson, or Zach Gallen. Philly guy. This is free agent year. I could see him having a big year. Be interesting to see in the American League with Tarek Skubal whether he can do that again.
Wow. Boy,
He's from Kingman, Arizona. That's where you stop for gas on your way to Vegas. Nobody goes to Kingman. And he had no scholars. He had no college scholarships.
Hey,
You want to go to
pitch to Seattle U. How about that?
Want to go to U of A? Want to go to Grand Canyon? End up at CLU. What Dave said, And here he is, the best pitcher, best pitcher on the planet. So it'd be pretty cool to see if he can do that again. And of course, Judge is going to be a better player, I think, nowadays in right field. If
Yeah.
Soto had came back, then he'd be stuck in center again. And that was tough for him. He's such a big guy. It's cool for him to be back in right field again.
He plays right field really well too. So, what kind of relationship have you developed? We were talking about relationships earlier with the executives. How often or how open are some guys? I mean, out of the 30-something guys, how many guys do you think they're honest with you when you call them up and look for information?
Probably a handful at most. They used to be very honest, like, okay, I gotta get rid of this guy. He's bad chemistry in the clubhouse, that sort of thing. But you don't really hear that much anymore. It's not nearly as open as it used to be.
Yeah. And as a longtime baseball writer, where are you on sabermetrics, which can go to like the 39th parallel? I mean, it's unbelievable the stuff that's out there. And I find some of it interesting, but from my standpoint as a broadcaster, I can't be talking all those numbers. It's not like a math tutorial, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of I hate this stuff. Tell you the truth, I was talking to Verlander today for an hour. We're talking about wins. He's 38 wins from 300. You hear this talk about wins, aren't important or overvalued. It's like you talk to guys like Greg Maddux. Like, you kidding me? I'm not taking the mound and saying I hope I get no decision. I'm going for a win. Sat down a couple of years ago with Albert Pujols. I said, Albert, what stat are you most proud of in your career? He goes, the one nobody talks about, RBIs. He goes, you got to either score runs or drive them in. He goes, well, that's not big. Why are we keeping score? So to say that RBIs are overrated is a joke. I saw something last year with Luis Arias. Hey, if he hits 400, should we care? Yes. Throw a parade if he hits 400. But yeah, just things like that. The one thing that drives me crazy is the on base percentage. It's different if Ricky Henderson's on base. He's going to steal second and third. It's totally different if guys are clogging the base pass. I can't tell you how many managers have been screaming at their players, whether it was Soto in San Diego, Votto in Cincinnati, different places. Like, swing the bat. If you got a first base, you're clogging the base pass. We want you driving runs.
Yeah. I'm with you. We had Booney on recently, and he was talking about how he expects the Yankees to be a lot more athletic and be able to go first to third a heck of a lot more with some of the personnel changes they've made for this season.
Yeah, and that's the big thing. It's just taking that extra base. Particularly now, it's so easy to steal bases. That's another thing we're talking about too. The Giants today is that you almost should have an asterisk one day. If someone breaks Lou Brock's record and Ricky Henderson's as far as stolen bases, the rules are so different now.
Yeah.
I mean, Shohei Ohtani stole 36 in a row. I mean, imagine if Ricky Henderson, I'd never been caught if the rules were the way it is now. So it's just totally different.
Yeah, for sure.
With regard to data taking over the game and your feelings on that, take us inside some of your conversations, if you would, with Dusty Baker, who's a mutual friend. Obviously, he was able to synthesize, at least that was what the reporting was, synthesize the data that the front office was supplying him with, and then his tremendous baseball acumen. Would love to hear sort of the back and forth that you guys have around that subject.
Yeah, I mean, he's as he says, before they call it sabermetrics, he goes, I call it math. I was doing that stuff back in the 80s, 90s, the different color pencils and stuff like that. And, Dave, you go to his office, you're listening to jazz music in the background, but he's got his head down and writing down numbers and things like that. But, he trusts his heart and his eyes. I remember one time in the playoffs, I think he left somebody, Greinke, in to face a guy and he got him out. People were lauding the thing. He goes, was it that complicated? He goes, he's burning everybody else we got in that bullpen. I think too many managers now are so worried about getting second guess and stats and going through 3 times, 4 times to the batting order, where you got to trust a guy. And I don't think there's anybody better that I covered that knows players as well as Dusty, and they wanted to perform as hard as possible. I mean, he got the most of every team he managed.
That happened in the World Series with Dave Roberts leaving his guy and trusting his guy.
Yeah,
and that was loved that story.
Yeah, when he said you got one more in you. He had 38, 39 pitches, and they're out of pitchers. Snell got racked early on, and or not Snell, but the Flaherty got racked early on, and then they But yeah, he trusted what he saw. I still like, with Randy Johnson when he pitched, he'd be out there and someone would come to the mound in the seventh or eighth inning saying, "We're going to take you out." And Randy says, "Who's coming in?" The manager would tell him, he goes, "No, I got this. I'll go the whole way."
Love those attitudes, man. When guys, hey, I'm going 7, I'm going 8. Come on, don't not 100 pitches, 5 innings. All right, take me out. Yeah, they're looking up at
Yeah,
the
you see
board.
that. Yeah, the guys don't know how to get out of trouble. I mean, the famous story, of course, in the '91 World Series with Jack Morris is in the 10th inning, and Tom Kelly comes down. He starts walking toward Jack Morris to take him out, and Morris goes, "Don't even look at me. Get out of here." He did, and when the game got 15 innings, he'll still be pitching.
Man, oh man, yeah. And the other thing too, are we grooming guys enough, or doing a good enough job to groom guys to get into 7th innings? I mean, third time around, we can't let them see third time.
No, they're taking him out early. Even the minor leagues, these guys don't know how to get out of trouble. I remember a couple of years ago, John Smoltz says, "What's the most unbreakable record in baseball?" So I threw out the usual stuff. He goes, "No, Greg Maddux threw 27 complete games in his minor league career. They'll never be touched." Right? These kids don't know how to go deep into games. And it's almost now, I was talking to Verlander about this. You almost got to change the rules. Like, hey, you got to throw so many pitches or go so many innings. Let's make sure these starters go deep because you want to help the offense. Let these guys face them 3 or 4 times. Let's do something because you're paying to see starting pitchers, not a bullpen game.
All right, let's get into the closing segment. Rapid response, sir. Most interesting thing you've heard from a GM this off season?
Off season. What's it going on? Pretty much, it was interesting. It's like every GM knew it, but they weren't coming out. The Oakland A's had to spend money. It's like it's not like we want to spend money, but we have to. And sure enough, they did. It's like they were almost forced to do it, and that's why they made their move with Severino, locked up Rucker and stuff like that. But you hear different things like whether players can handle back east. It's one thing to play and perform out west, anything west of Chicago on west. But there's so many guys and so many teams won't touch a guy because they can't handle Philly, they can't handle Boston or New York. And the trouble with these free agents is that an agent can come out and say, "Oh, hey, all these teams are interested in me." Like, remember they had the Phillies' interest in Juan Soto. Never even talked about Juan Soto, never once. But they can't come out and say that publicly because it's against the CBA.
Yeah, yeah. Over under 100 wins for the Yankees or Dodgers?
Uh, I'll set the Dodgers over barely because I think they'll be very careful all year with the pitchers. I say the Yankees under. I still think win the division, but a little under.
About a team people are sleeping on.
I think the team's the Cincinnati Reds. I saw where
Teal.
FanGraphs had like 74, 75 wins. The betting odds like 78 wins. I think they got a chance to win the division. I think Terry Francona means that much to that clubhouse. They made some improvements. Great young pitching staff with Hunter Green. I know it's a bandbox, but no, I think they're going to bounce back.
Okay. And I know it's February, but if you had to put your finger on a World Series winner, who do you got?
I'm going Texas Rangers. They won the World Series 2 years ago. Remember, Bruce Bochy in San Francisco is every other year. So why not every other year in Texas?
Good point.
Surprise pick. A surprise pick.
Yeah.
Over the course of your career, most memorable scoop that you broke or almost broke, what was that? And can you walk us through sort of that moment in time?
Yeah, I had a few with the Barry Bonds when he was going to, retire. That he had had enough. Tony Gwynn called him up on the team bus. He goes, "This is it. I'm going to retire in a few weeks." George Brett's retirement. I was working in L.A. and he's KC, but of course a L.A. kid. But probably the most was with Bo Jackson. Whether it's he's going to go play football or do this or that. He was going to quit football after that season with the Raiders, and then of course the hip injury, ruined everything. But Nike had made it impossible for him to just play baseball. The money off the field was so great football wise than baseball. So yeah, a lot of those jump out. Some big trades and things like that. Sales of franchises have been good. But yeah, just the retirement one stick out the most to me. And of course, Bo. I mean, for a while, I was the only reporter Bo would talk to because he didn't trust anybody. We were about the same age at the time, and I'd even go to the Raiders training camp and do stories on him, that sort of thing. Yeah, he went and talked to Sports Illustrated. He got upset. He had a bad stuttering problem, and so when he always used the word Bo, and so people thought, yeah, third person because this guy's so arrogant. No, he could not say I without stuttering badly. But he could say Bo very easily. He was like he did not like Deion Sanders. He was the opposite of Deion. He hated the flashiness and everything else. He just wanted to be his own guy and big time family guy. He's so proud of his mom and we're growing up in Bessemer, Alabama, and everything else.
Have you ever gone hunting with Bo?
No, but I've been in the clubhouse where he had that bow and arrow, shooting that thing around and say, "You want to put something in your head?" No, I don't, Bo. but he could have been an All-American gymnast, a swimmer. He couldn't play basketball. He couldn't dribble, but yeah, he could have done anything else. Yeah.
You have that jersey, Bo Jackson jersey, on your wall. Sort of what was it about the relationship that you and he had that you cherish or find to be most special?
Yeah, just I was coming to Royals, when he broke in. That's an Auburn jersey, and but just why he didn't go to the NFL. Why he was so upset with Tampa Bay. He thought Tampa Bay, ruined his eligibility. Why he went to baseball. Just he was so upset with the NFL, even though everybody thought baseball was kind of a joke. He wasn't going to do it. He would have been. I don't know if he would have been a Hall of Famer, but he would have been a perennial All-Star.
No doubt.
Yeah. So just the feats he would do. I mean, you'd be in the clubhouse and say, $20, I can jump over this table. There's things like that. And I was at the game in, the Kingdom back when he threw out Harold Reynolds, flat-footed. He even take a stride, where it was after the game. Walk in there, Harold Reynolds was looking at the replay. He thought somebody cut it off. He could not believe he threw him out on the fly to Bob Boone and tag and stuff. It was an unbelievable throw.
And we had Harold on when we started this, and he still mystified as to what happened and how it happened, man.
Yeah, flat-footed. Yeah, it was unbelievable. Yeah, I think it was like the 10th inning too. It was extra inning game.
Yeah.
Coming back to ball today, trade deadline forecast. What are you thinking now? Is it or is it too early to call? And what are the rumblings you can tell us about?
Well, of course, the news is Vlad Guerrero. It's like, okay, if he's not signed, say the Blue Jays are out of the race, they might as well trade him. I keep hearing he wants to play in Boston.
I heard Steve Phillips talking about him coming to New York and wearing pinstripes today on Instagram. Is that any truth
the Yankees? To that? He said he'll go with 2019, not the Yankees. He's upset with however they treat his dad or something happened. And I've asked the Yankee people about that. And they say, yeah, it's true. We can understand why he says that. But he won't go to the Yankees. He's not going to say that publicly now because every free agent wants the Yankees involved. But I think it's either the Red Sox or Mets. If he doesn't go, I still think he signs with the Blue Jays. I mean, I know he says, I don't want to, be a distraction. If it's a distraction, someone gives you a $500 million check. Hey, you want to? Of course you are.
Wow. Yeah, Griffey, I remember Junior talked about how he would never go to the Yankees because of the way they treated him when he was a kid in the clubhouse. Yeah, unbelievable. Hey, Bob, I appreciate you giving us the time. Keep up the good work. We really appreciate you joining us.
Sure, take care, Jared. Take care, Dave.
Hi, everybody. Dave Sibbs from the Hey Now podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us here on the Hey Now podcast.
Hey!